A big hello and welcome. It's Kate from Zen Stitching, and I'm super excited to be joining you today for another one of our Making Zen artist conversations. Today, I am super excited to be welcoming back Ellie Fisher from Elka Textiles. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, it's so delightful to have you back, and I just know we had such a wonderful time with the projects that you created last time, that we just had to have you back for some more of your wonderful goodness and creativity. And Ellie, I'd love to probably dive in the deep end. And gosh, where do I start? I get so excited. I'd love to know, what are you going to be sharing with us for the current Making Zen retreat?
So, I decided to go with another off-loom project, which seems to be the, well, I say the direction my weaving's gone in recently. It's been for several years now, and I just find weaving in its most basic form is so therapeutic. And I'm a huge advocate of promoting the fact that you really don't need to spend loads of money on equipment. You don't need to have, everything all singing, all dancing. Although I realise a lot of us are a type, and you have to do that when you pick up a new craft, is have all the gear. I have drawers with labels on of all my crafts that I am yet to do, and I've got the gear. But I really do love doing that. And for me, recently, I've had quite a tricky time in my personal life, and I'm just finding sitting in the evenings, which is when my thoughts would maybe sort of escalate, and is actually just having a really sort of small, manageable project that you could complete in an evening is really therapeutic, and it's just a really lovely thing to sit and do. So it's a very long-winded introduction to. Am I allowed to show? Am I allowed to show an example of
Yes,
what we're using?
please. We
So
would love.
it's, well, it could be lots of things, but I've attached it to a key here, and I used it as an excuse to buy this lovely vintage lock from eBay. I was like, I have to have it for the product photography, but it's lovely and I will use it.
That
Um,
is
it
gorgeous.
it's lovely, isn't it? And so it'll be these little charms basically, and you could use them. It's sort of around. Well, I loathe using the c word this early on, but it's a nice festive project. The c word being Christmas. Um,
Yes, I'm like, what C word are we thinking?
and if you knew me, you'd know I commonly use it. So yes, so it's sort of a multifunctional little charm trinket thing. And I also think I might show an example of it being used as sort of like bunting. I can't think of the word, like a, yeah, like bunting. So you could sort of string them together horizontally as well. But in this tutorial specifically, I'm going to show you how to make the little twisted cord and how to pop a tassel on it. So yeah, so that's what we'll be doing. And all you need for it is a small piece of card. You can also make really teeny tiny ones. Um,
Oh,
they're a bit more fiddly, so in the tutorial we'll be making a slightly bigger one. Um, because if you have any issues with dexterity, and if you haven't woven before, I think starting on a slightly bigger scale is always a good idea. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm loving creating it, and yeah.
yeah, and it's so super beautiful. I love seeing it, and I particularly love your uh, approach to creativity, where it's using what you have, using resources that you have to hand, and kind of just making do a lot of the time. Because I know we quite often, as creative people, have a lot of fabulous resources that are at our fingertips. And so it's really nice to be able to reach into our stash and use what we already have rather than having to go out and buy something particular. Of course, there's always an exception to that rule.
Always an exception. The other thing that well, I suppose it's obvious anyway, is that you only need a tiny amount of yarn for it. So it's really good for stash busting. It's
Yeah.
brilliant for like little bits of leftover embroidery yarn. The yarns that I've used, most of them actually, this one that I've used with the gold here, that's just from a charity shop, and you don't have to be too strict on like the weight of the yarn, although you want a slightly finer one for the detail. Um, if you were working on a bigger scale, the tension becomes an issue, but because you're working on such a small scale, that's not such a problem. So you're not so restricted as to the types of yarn you can use. It can have a little bit of stretch in it, and that's not a problem. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they're so delightful. And I do like the fact that you're starting to think about that time of the year where we make gifts and decorate trees and that kind of thing without mentioning the word.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it will be here before we know it. And I know it always sneaks up on me every year. So
Yeah,
I think it's fabulous that you're starting to think that. But like you say, you have these great other alternatives for it where it's like
yeah.
hanging on a beautiful key or, a myriad of other options
You could
too.
actually, you could pop it on the front of a card. You could pop it so it was like as part of the card. So you could pop it, make a little slit in it. I'll put that in the tutorial. Um,
Yeah, that's lovely. But
yeah.
just as an object on by themselves, I can see them just, a couple of them hanging on the wall or, they're beautiful just as items as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Little magpie items.
they seriously are. And Ellie, because I know you and your work, which I think is absolutely beautiful, and you spend a lot of time weaving and working with natural dyes. I'd love to hear a little bit about the story of how you found your way into your current creative practice to share with our audience.
So I think it really well as far as sustainability goes. I'm a bit boring on that front. I do harp on about it, and I think sustainability is no longer enough. Like we it. I'm trying to think of the word. It's completely gone from my head. Um, but I've always I wrote my dissertation on hemp and where it's at in the current fashion industry. Was that in might have been 2005, I want to say. But that feels like such a long time ago. But I'm getting older, so it might well have been then. Anyway, it was a very long time ago. So I did a load of research into hemp, and I couldn't believe that it had been criminalized for the reasons it had been, because it's such an incredible plant, it's such an incredible fiber. And so that really triggered my interest in sustainable textiles. And although I went through phases like neon phases and things like that, I've always come back to sustainable. And regenerative was the word that I was looking for a minute ago, and I think that is, that has to be where we're at, and it is the future of the textile industry. So I was really struggling to find sustainable yarns are quite easy to find, but if you want them dyed in different colours, suddenly you're adding air miles and chemicals and all the rest of it. And this beautiful sustainable yarn isn't as sustainable as it was in the first place. And I'd ordered a kilo of hemp from an Italian company, and it cost me more than a kilo of cashmere. I in 2015 I swapped to a plant-based lifestyle, and so I changed all of the yarns that I was using, which was a really big shift for me because my business was predominantly making cashmere and merino scarves, and I'd make batches of sort of 20 at a time for galleries and shops and things like that. Um, and I wasn't enjoying that for several reasons, mostly because once it's exciting getting an order for 20 scarves that are all the same, but once you've set up the loom and you're on scarf 5, life's becoming quite boring, and then you've got another sort of however many to do. And so the swap to using plant-based materials was a bit bumpy, and I sort of swapped over to making bespoke upholstery material because I could use hemp and things like that. But I was horrified at how expensive the hemp was, and that's how my mum came to work with the business. My mum, Claudia, who's always had an interest in natural dyeing, and she was listening to me. Well, she was listening to my concerns about not having access to sustainable yarns, and she said, "Well, you know, why don't I start dyeing some yarns for you?" And my mum, my dad, and myself all went on this natural dyeing course, and we thought it would be my dad actually that really got into it, and he was just getting cross that he couldn't just go out foraging and find something that would produce an amazing natural dye. He didn't, that wasn't exciting enough for him. But my mum has, she's now been teaching it for several years as well, but she started dyeing yarns for me. I wonder if I've got some. I've got some just up here. They're beautiful, the yarns that she dyes. So they're really, that's the colour looks a bit different. This, I'm not sure how it looks on your screen, but it's a really sort of buttercup yellow, and that's dyed with a plant called weld, which grows like a weed in this country. There's an amazing picture of my mum's sister who was visiting from South Africa, and weld is quite elusive, so it likes growing on freshly disturbed ground. So it grows on building sites and things like that. And you'll find it maybe like in the central reservation of roads and things if they've done some road work. But once it's come up one year, it's unlikely to come up the next year. And so you think you found a good spot, and you won't find it again the next year. So my mum was driving back from the airport, having picked her sister up from South Africa, and she spotted in the middle of this very busy road a load of weld, and she was like, "Oh, we have to get it." Anyway, they went running over this dual carriageway, and there's a picture of Catherine with all of this weld, completely mental. Anyway, so there's that, and then you've got madder root, this is a really beautiful sort of candy flossy pink, and then obviously indigo. So I think the colours that you can get are incredible from natural dyes, and it's quite difficult to get the same colour twice, and that's where my mum just blows my mind with her. She keeps these meticulous records of all her experiments, and we're like opposite on that front. I'm chaos and she's like spreadsheet ordered, and she really loves the science of it. And I can now give her a lot number for a colour that's run out, and she can get really quite close to that shade so that we can upload it onto the website within the same product listing, which with natural dyeing is really, it's quite a skill. So yes, I am going off on one. But so that's how Mum came to working with the business, and we sort of teach online and in person.
That's beautiful. I love hearing all of that, and I can particularly resonate with both your mother's desire and way of recording everything to make sure you get just the right colors for natural dyeing. I have a tendency to err towards your way of being as well. I like to throw things in and see what happens, and that's very exciting, but being able to recreate it can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. So I admire your mum's ability to record it all and be precise.
Yeah, well, she'll give me things that haven't, in her mind, have not turned out how she wanted, and so she'll give them to me going, "Oh, it's just not right, and it's just not this, that, and the other." And she just gives me these baskets of it's like sweets. They're just amazing, and so I'm really spoilt. I'm really spoilt for choice with my yarns and stuff, and they're lovely ones to have. I keep a little. I wonder if I've got it to hand. I keep a little pouch with me all the time now that's got my off-loom weaving kits, and it's always got like a little selection of her naturally dyed yarns, and I just take it, I put it in my handbag. I don't think you call it. It's like a sack, the bag I carry. The pouch I put in it is quite small with my off-loom weaving stuff, and it's just got a little pin cushion with a tapestry needle and a sort of flat bodkin and some naturally dyed yarns, and it just means I've got them all the time. And whenever I go down to the beach, my daughter started doing it now as well, and if we're with friends, everyone just sits and sort of does a little stone weaving. It's a really lovely thing. It's just so accessible. It's just a really nice thing to be able to do.
And I love that you, like you say, you have a little bundle that you put in your satchel and you can just kind of take it wherever you want. It doesn't take up a whole lot of room, doesn't weigh a whole lot, and you can just pull it out when the moment strikes to do a little bit of weaving.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I seriously love hearing that. And thank you for explaining your journey of how you got to be where you are. It sounds like there were quite some pivotal moments in your journey to reach where you are today. And I'd love to know, do you think you always knew that you wanted to be an artist?
Um, I think I've always found great comfort in creativity. So I now know I was late diagnosed along with half the world ADHD, and and now I understand more about ADHD. I can recognise why I was the way I was at school, and that women mask more than men, and so I always got by at school, but I had massive hang-ups throughout my life from thinking that I wasn't good enough and I couldn't keep up. And you put all these things on yourself,
Mm,
and you pigeonhole yourself into this person. And um, so I think art was something that was always good at, or I could always, I could focus, um, and that's from as early on as I can remember in school. I've always, and it's normally been the art teacher that I've always had one teacher in every year that has just recognized that and been able to, nurture that and get me to keep going with whatever I was doing,
mm,
which must have been very challenging for them. So I mean, hats off to them, and I have a huge amount of respect for them for that. And yeah, so it's always been, there was never really any question in my mind. My art teacher George Hatton, from when I did my GCSEs, so around 15, 16, I was, by that point, was drinking really heavily, smoking. I would leave classrooms mid class and just go and sort of smoke. I was wild and
mm,
addicted to alcohol by that point, and all the rest of it. And he would let me go and sit in the art block because he knew if I wasn't there, even if I was meant to be in a maths class, he would let me sit in the art block and he wouldn't tell anyone because I'd be sitting there drawing or painting as opposed to sitting in a bush drinking and smoking. And so,
mm.
and it was him actually that convinced my parents that actually for pursuing a career in art was a really good option for me, and that I didn't need pushing in academically in a direction that I wasn't interested in. So and then I went on to university, and I did my A levels and I did an art foundation and went on to university to study textiles. So yeah, so that's it. Yeah, I think it's partially that was only ever the option that I had, in my mind. I just couldn't have applied myself to anything else, and amazing dedicated teachers and tutors who who could put up with my appalling
Yeah.
behaviour,
Yes.
and kind of nurture the good stuff.
It's interesting that you bring up just the value of teachers and how beneficial they are to all of us. Like you say, they're nurturing, they're encouraging, and you just need one teacher to believe in you to be able to help you develop your confidence in your skills and just your belief in yourself.
Yeah,
And they really are gems, aren't they? Our teachers of the world. I think we should put them up on pedestals because they're in charge of raising our youth, and they deserve so much respect.
yeah, yeah, and slightly higher pay grades. Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think that's possibly one of the reasons I love teaching weaving so much is because of that and recognizing how beneficial it was to me. But I think with weaving, I just love, and it'll be the same with your stitching, and it's just passing on that ability to somebody else of something that you love and treasure so much, and passing on that ability just to self-regulate. That's
Mm.
what it does, isn't it? It's that connection between sort of your mind and your hands, and um, it's well, I said before we started recording, it's like free therapy. It's an amazing thing to be able to do. So it's lovely to be able to pass that on. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, it really is, and like you say, it's kind of two in one in a sense, isn't it? Because you're learning the technique, and I find everyone who comes to me, they want to learn the technique because it's the technique that is interesting, and so the mindfulness aspect is kind of like this added bonus that you get on top, which brings you the peace and the calm and the tranquility and the ability to kind of just shut off outside thoughts and focus on what's at hand.
yeah. And I don't know whether you find it with the stitching as well, is that I very often get people who come into workshops, and this happens almost every workshop, and before they've even introduced themselves, they're not creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body, and their sisters told them to come, or they're, somebody else, or they're, and um, the fact that it's a technical skill, you can hide behind that a little bit, so you don't have to be creative, or whatever you've pigeoned yourself, or somebody else has pigeoned you hold you to be. You don't have to be creative. You're learning a technical skill, and it really is almost always those people that are ringing me up after the workshops wanting a bigger loom or wanting to do a more advanced course, and they just, once they've realized that they can drop that kind of image of themselves of not being creative, like the taps are open and they're just off,
Mhm.
and I
Mm.
love that. I really, really love that.
I bet. Yeah. It's those moments that give you goosebumps that you can
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of see people kind of shedding that kind of reservation or self-belief and then just kind of reaching for the stars pretty
yeah,
much, isn't it?
yeah. And also, I find that people who haven't been, because I like who haven't been like formally trained through university and things like that, like me, like we're really uptight. Not all of us, but I'm particularly uptight, and I'm a perfectionist, and I'm really critical of everything I do technically and all the rest of it. But actually, people who haven't got that formal training, I love seeing what they come up with, because they haven't got those like they haven't got all of those little voices.
It's so true. I have to admit, because yes, we have all of these rules, which are great.
Mm.
Sometimes they're there for a very good reason, but sometimes we kind of get stuck in them. So it's really great to be able to kind of like have that fresh point of view where you don't know what the rules are. So you don't even know that you're breaking them, which I'm sure is beneficial not only for your students but for you, because you get to see different ways of working, different ways of incorporating ideas or colors or techniques, which then expands your creativity too, because that starts you thinking in a different way as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I also I mean, it's so you learn so much, don't you? You never learn more than you do from teaching something. And I'll often like glance up, and a student will be doing something upside down, back to front, like, and it's like, but that's working, like, that's like, I can't fault that. It's like you want to jump in and go, no, no, I want you to hold it that way up and that, because I do it like that, and actually, like, that's working just fine for you, and that's how your brain has decided it works, and technically, we're producing the same thing at the end of the day. So so that's nice to observe.
That's so much fun, and I love hearing about that because yes, we do. I think we learn as much about ourselves through teaching as we do from the other participants in the class. I always love everybody has such a wealth of information and life experience that when we all get together, we can problem solve or get inspired by one another. And I think that where is the beauty of the Making Zen event, because we've got all these wonderful teachers coming in, sharing all these great projects, and then all these wonderful people participating, and then you get a mishmash of all of these different projects together, and they come together in ways that you couldn't even imagine before the event started.
I loved it last year, and I loved how engaged the Making Zen audience is. It's the most engaged audience I've ever come across, and everyone's just so lovely. And I've just what's in the Facebook group, seeing everyone's projects and stuff. It's really inspiring and just a really feel good, lovely event. Yeah.
Yeah, it completely is, and I love hearing occasionally people they want to know when the dates are so that they can take time off work and just have a week of Zen, which I think is just absolutely delightful.
Yeah, that's very cool. I want to do that.
You
I
know,
want
I
a
do
week off
too.
work.
I keep, I keep thinking a Making Zen retreat for me. It's going to happen one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I do, get in my in-person workshops, and I've really upped them this year. I've doubled how many in-person workshops I'm doing. But very often you get people coming together and they take it in turns to buy each other like a crafting experience every month, and I am so jealous of them. I need to do that. Like, I really need to. And I decided several years ago, I was like, I'm going to do that. And I went to this lovely visible mending event, and I'd never done any before. And me and my cousin, who's now working with me, Chloe, who actually designed this project, we went to that together, and we had such a lovely evening. And it was in the venue belonging to one of my best friends, who's also now working with me. She's doing marketing and stuff, which is really cool. And we were like, we need to do this every month. And lo and behold, none of us have done it since. But maybe now we're all working together, we can enforce that.
That's it. You just got to put it in the calendar. No excuses.
Yeah. Once a month, a different craft a month. Yeah,
That's it. But you bring up a really good point, and I think it's something that we all come up against is that making time for creativity, and that's something that, it's a bit of a common thread. It's lovely to be able to do it on a daily basis, but sometimes that doesn't happen, and or it's lovely to put time aside, like what you're talking about, where you make a special occasion of it. And sometimes that doesn't happen as well. It can be one of those things that kind of fall to the bottom of the to-do list in a sense because we're so busy doing
yeah,
everything else.
yeah.
But I'd love to know, Ellie, because this is something that is near and dear to your heart. What does a typical day in your studio look like?
Um, at the moment, well, we've had the summer holidays, so it's been absolute chaos. But I think I'm trying to get again. This is quite sort of. I have got raging ADHD, so I'll pick something up, like manically do it, put it down, pick something else up, and so my studio just ends up piling up over a period of time, and then I'm like, I can't see the floor and have to clear everything again, and so it's like this sort of like hectic tide of stuff that comes in and out. But um, up until this point, really, it's kind of managing my in-person workshops. So I teach 4 different types of weaving. I teach off-loom weaving, which is the newest addition to the workshops. I teach inkle loom weaving, which is, I'm wondering if I've got any to hand, which is a band weaving. I did have some somewhere. I don't know where it's gone. But it's band weaving. So, and then frame loom weaving, which is like tapestry loom weaving, and then table loom weaving, which is slightly more complex with shafts lifting up and down. And so for all of those, being prepared for each workshop is really important to me because my brain is in chaos all the time. Managing those sort of workshop boxes and things like that, and making sure I've got exactly what I need for each workshop. I always dread working away from the studio because if I forget something, it's often hours and hours drive away. So there's no option to come back for it.
Mhm.
So a lot of it is making sure, because I like giving people very, very clear learning support with that. I like having printed out step-by-step handouts and things like that. So a lot of my day spent doing marketing material and like learning material and things like that. So there's the social media element to our businesses, which I kind of have a love-hate relationship with, because I'm not very good at selling myself. I think a lot of creatives have that issue. I don't like being on camera. I don't like having my photo taken. I don't like, and so that has been really difficult for me to do, but I'm getting better at it, I think. And once I start talking, as you can probably tell, you can't shut me up. But I have found in the past, and if things are difficult in your personal life, portraying things on social media, and I don't like being unrealistic about what's happening on social media. I don't want to be all nice and smiley when my life isn't like that. But at the same time, I have a business to run, I have a child I need to support, and coming on and being miserable, I wouldn't do that, because that's not me anyway. And so so a lot of it is social media, which I've only just really picked up again. I've had a summer kind of off all of that, which has been really nice. But generally, several hours are spent on that every day. So really, I'd say probably about half of my day at least is spent on a computer. And then a lot of it is online content creation and course creation and things like that. So that's those are the bits that I love, is sitting down and doing these little projects, like the project I'm doing for Making Zen. I get to sit in the studio, put an audio book on the bits where I'm just weaving, and that's an element actually that I never thought that I would get into, is the actual like editing of videos and kind of putting tutorials together. And I love doing all of that. I really, really enjoy it. But again, I'm quite a perfectionist, so it's it's letting go of the things you need to let go of and not fixating on them, and just kind of getting stuff done.
Yeah, yes, it's a fine line at times. Yeah.
The way I also see it is that what I desperately want to get back to is a lot of creative weaving for myself, and probably on a slightly bigger scale. Everything I do personally at the moment for me, which is generally to self-regulate in the evenings, like I mentioned before, are much smaller projects. But several years ago now, I can't remember what year it was, I started weaving with wire, and I really, really enjoyed that, and wove some much bigger kind of sculptural pieces. I was making the warp out of bare copper wire, and so then it was being sort of molded when it came off the loom. And I would love to be back in a place where I can dedicate, even if it's like half a day a week, to doing my own creative practice. That would be on that kind of scale. That would be a really nice thing to work towards.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it is. It's so important to make sure that we feed our own creative well, so that the creativity and the encouragement can continue to flow as well.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but
It's the irony, isn't it, of running a creative business, is actually the real creativity you get to do yourself. It's quite minimal, but
exactly.
Yeah.
I love hearing that, and it's really fascinating to kind of hear your journey as an artist. And what would you say, Ellie, if someone was in your shoes 20 years ago, what advice would you give them that you wish you had heard 20 years ago, or when you first started your creative journey?
To do what you love, I think, is to do what you love. Don't do what you think other people want to see, because I spent donkey's years producing stuff that I thought other people would want to buy, and they did buy it, but it wasn't. I found when I did actually, I did a range of scarves. Am I allowed to swear on here? No. Well, it's called the Effort collection of scarves, and I just had this moment where I was like, what am I doing producing and I had this, I have these like piles of leftover yarn, like those are some of them there, And there's everything. I mean, I've got yarn in there that I've had since I was at university. And there are loads of tiny little snippets. And I just sat down at my loom and I produced this collection of scarves that were completely random, neon, flashing, that is me, like chaos maximalist. That's what my work is like, and that's my personality. And they sold, I sold more of those than anything else because that was me. And although I did very well with my very neat sort of tweedy herringbone like gentleman scarves and stuff like that, I didn't get a huge amount of enjoyment from that unless I
Yeah.
was specifically making it for somebody. And yeah, I'd just say, just follow your creative heart on that front, and not kind of conform to what you think other people want.
That's such good advice. And like you say, when you do something that brings you joy, it resonates. People can feel it and they respond to it equally as joyfully, I think. And
Yeah,
it's a hard one to learn, though, isn't it? I think you can sometimes need to go through that learning that maybe creating for yourself is more joyful and better than creating for what
yeah.
you think someone wants.
And it is actually, it's not something someone can really tell you, I don't think, is it? No,
No.
no. It's like suddenly, as you get older as a woman, suddenly finding your confidence in your 40s, and it's like this kind of like no one could ever have told you, to love your body and love your, and just like, when you were in your 20s and kind of self-deprecating, and I am like that still a bit, but like you know what I mean, you can't, it's a learning curve, isn't it?
Yes.
um,
Yes.
but I'd say on that front is just surround yourself with like good people.
I think that's such a beautiful piece of advice to end on because um, we are so, as creative individuals, and I think we might have touched upon this earlier, we're just, I don't know, we have a different way of being in the world, I think, anyway. And so uh, I find I love connecting with other artists, which is one of the reasons why Making Zen brings me so much joy, is because I get to chat with wonderful people like yourself. So, and I always forget that artists can connect on a different wavelength, I think. There's just a connection that we have that's a little bit different to talking to people who aren't as creative. I can't explain it, but just
I get you.
um, you know. And so your advice of connecting with like-minded people and surrounding yourself with people who are supportive and going to encourage you is such wise words of wisdom. I can't get that out. Such wise words.
No,
Still
it's
can't get it out.
interesting.
It's a
I'm
good
gonna
thought.
try.
And again, that's where Making Zen really does come into its own, doesn't it? Because everyone is there to support you and encourage you and just have a good time, I think, at the end of the day. Bring joy to ourselves and to others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Mhm.
Which is why I'm thrilled you've joined us. So thank you so much, Ellie, for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure connecting with you again. I'm thrilled that you're part of the event, and I can't wait to see all the beautiful things that people are going to create from your workshop.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm really excited too. And thank you for your time, Kate.
Thank you for joining me in this creative journey. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you'd like to learn more about Making Zen, please check out the links below where you can find out all about the workshops, creativity, community, and all that kind of good stuff. Wishing you many happy hours of stitching.